I wanted to help out with the long COVID project. I've suffered similar experiences before, and I can understand what a lot of the people that have long COVID are going through now. And I thought maybe there's some effort, some ideas that I can put forward that can help other people and just make them feel that much better, having gone through those experiences myself. I'm also involved a lot in other community projects, and it's just the thing to do to get out and help people and see if we can make their lives just a little bit better. I first got COVID on the 24th of May this year, which was just a sore throat. So I did my RAT test, and I had sore throat, that was fine. The next day, I pretty much had no symptoms until the evening, and I started to get a bit of a head cold. Then on the Tuesday, I had a real bad head cold and not feeling very good. I thought, this is it. So I did my RAT test, and I think the line went red before the fluid even got there. Okay, that was COVID. So I knew I had the fact, went through all the processes. Then the next day, the Wednesday, I was resting after lunch, and I got this strange quivering, shaking feeling going right through my body, and then it felt like my head was about to explode, like it was about 5 times bigger than it normally was. I thought, this is pretty strange. I previously had, still live with Functional Neurological Disorder, FND, and the feeling, the brain fog and the brain swelling was something similar to that. So that afternoon, I sent an email to my GP just to explain that I tested positive for COVID and that I felt like my FND symptoms had come back. He rang me that evening, and we just sort of discussed it, and he said, you'll be right in a month, so we'll just how things go from there. So as we all do after our discussions with our medical people, I just carried on. And things sort of progressed. After 2 weeks, I got a little bit better. And then after a month, I still had a number of the symptoms, particularly the brain fog, and one of the symptoms of FND, and what I was doing was the inability to walk properly. So on odd occasions I can walk quite normally, but the rest of the time I have a bit of a shuffle, and other times I just completely lose the ability to walk. So at this stage I was still having great difficulty walking and brain fog. So after the month, I went back and saw my GP, and he said, it hasn't resolved itself. I said, no. I said, so I'm relating this to COVID. He said, well, yes, possibly. He really didn't specify long COVID at that stage, but he gave me a medical certificate for 3 months. So that was sort of, we're in no man's land, but I know you can't work. Then I eventually got a referral to a neurologist, and that's a whole nother story. And I saw him at the beginning of October, and he gave the confirmation that my FND had been exacerbated by COVID, and that I had long COVID as well. So that was in October. It took a while. I'd known myself that that's what the situation was, but to get the medical diagnosis was from May till October. Like, I'd had the FND back in 2001 and again in 2004. 2004 was quite debilitating, and I'd been out of work for 2 years. So I thought after this length of time that I'd had the whole thing under control, and when it came back again, it was very dispiriting. But I got through it last time, and I'll get through it this time. So it's just a case of being positive and looking to the future. The clear ones that I've had that are separate from the FND, more the things I've had later on. I've had bad gastrointestinal problems, like I went for a period of 3 weeks of not having anything solid go through. It was basically going in one end and out the other. And then I've had things like constant burping. Or before the diarrhea, and this leads to the analysis I had with the neurologist, is that my LC symptoms actually started after I had my first vaccination in August of last year. And these were things that were different, that my doctor couldn't pin on any reason for them. But as I went back and looked through the process, I found that these were LC symptoms. So the first one was not having solid stools. So I could be out in public somewhere and all of a sudden there'd be a motion in my pants for no reason, which was quite embarrassing and also quite disturbing, because I thought, what's causing this? Is it cancer, whatever? So I went to my GP again, and we did gluten tests, we did allergies, and nothing came up. And it was so infrequent, there was no rhyme or reason for it, but I now link it back to when I had my first COVID vaccination. The other one that happened about that time was my urethra not functioning properly. So when I was getting slightly dehydrated, I'd feel like the need to urinate. I would go and have just a trickle had come out. I think, okay, that's fine. And then 10 minutes I had to urinate again, and probably do that over a period of an hour until I got, and once again, it was experimental until I started getting rehydrated again. Once again, went to my GP, did all the tests and scans and everything, and there was nothing wrong. He said, no, there's no reason for it. I didn't have any infections. There was no misfunction. So I put that down once again to an LC symptom, which had come along. And this was in October last year, after I'd had my second vaccination. And then the fatigue, that's linked to FND as well, but that also started to kick in after I'd had my first 2 vaccinations. And once again I thought there was something, either my FND was coming back or there was something else was wrong, because I just plummeted. So there's lots of other little disturbing things like headaches. I've got a long list, and sometimes it's difficult to distinguish between the FND symptoms and the LC symptoms, but pretty much the gastrointestinal things, new ones that have cropped up. My resting pulse. In the last 3 months, my resting pulse can sit usually between 95 and 105. I bought a smartwatch, not a stopwatch, just to monitor it. And during nighttime, I sit between 62 and 70, which I'm quite glad about. But once I start getting functional during the day, I can lie down, and after being resting for 2 hours, my resting pulse can still be 105. The other day when I was at the supermarket, just pushing the trolley around very slowly, as I do, my pulse got up to 131. And at times I can feel the pulsing in my head. I check my blood pressure's fine, but just the heart rate and the pulsing is, disturbing at times. The main one is planning and learning to say no. Since my FND, I've developed a fairly busy, I like to keep busy, and I've had a fairly active life. So I've been involved in a lot of community projects, work. I was self-employed, and it came down to the fact that I just couldn't do these things. And eventually, as I've gathered data and resources about my functionality, I've just had to say, if it's not really important, and if it's not going to be to my or some of my close family members' benefit, I'm just not going to do it anymore. My data now shows that I'm functional, and that's including meals and going to the supermarket and everything. I've got functional time between 14 and 18 hours a week. So if I want to make that time as valuable as I can, get as much out of it as I can, then I have to pretty much say no to everything else. So that can mean staying in bed and resting for 3.5, 4 days, just doing nothing, so that I can actually do something in the times when I want to do it. That's been the most important thing in planning, and that means that I have a very strict diary. I plan my weeks ahead, sometimes 2 or 3 weeks ahead, and if what I'm doing doesn't fit within that 14 to 16 hours, then I don't do it. And if it's going to be over, then I know I'm going to suffer, or I might not even be able to do the things that I say I'm going to do. So planning is the most important thing. I've tried various alternative therapies and supplements and things to little effect. I've also tried leaving things out of my diet, adding things and doing all those sorts of things. Once again, to very little effect to my condition. Not saying that won't work for other people, but for me, pretty much I've gone back to leading as normal a life as I can with the restrictions that I pretty much can't do anything most of the time. So yeah, that's the key thing, is just planning. The functioning time has become very important. Like, I used to come up to Auckland regularly. This is the first time I've come up to Auckland since I've had COVID. And normally I just wouldn't go out for any reason, but Carol's friend had a birthday party last night, so we went out to a karaoke bar and had a really good night and had a lot of fun. So normally I'd be a wee bit brighter and perkier today, but I wasn't going to miss out on a fun night. But yeah, so it's just identifying those things that are going to make me and the people around me feel good, because it's really important that the people that are really important in my life are looked after as well, and included, and they're included in the discussions about what I'm doing as well. No, I haven't had any medications. Ongoing, I'd been on fluoxetine and nortriptyline, 2 SSRIs for my FND. So over the years, I'd slowly gone back on the amount of medication I'd been taking of both of those. The only real change is that I've doubled both of them. And what the effect that's had is taken away some of the random nerve pain and things that I was getting, which has also helped when I had the FND. The 2 SSRIs were the 2 things that helped with my pain management and also my sleep management. Yes, I have added melatonin to help me sleep at night. From the beginning of September, when my gastrointestinal things and all that stuff started to kick in, I was also not sleeping very well. So even though my resting pattern hadn't changed, I'd probably be awake till 4:30 in the morning. And since I've been taking the melatonin, that's definitely improved my sleep patterns and helped. So the SSRIs and the melatonin are the only 3 things I'm taking specifically related to LC. My social life, it's impacted on quite severely. So I'm generally a very social, outgoing person. My week would probably only see me at home 2 nights a week. I'd go and compete in a pub quiz and sing karaoke on Wednesday nights. I used to host a pub quiz on Thursday nights. I take my parents out. They meet with the same group of people for the last 20 years. They're now unable to drive themselves or do anything, so on Friday nights I'd take them out to dinner with their friends. Saturday I'd be involved with sport, either cricket or football and the socialising, whatever, afterwards. Sunday was my day for gardening and doing stuff around the house. So Mondays and Tuesdays were my catch-up days. Pretty much all that's gone by the by. I take my father out for a beer on Thursdays. That's his social occasion. I still take my parents out on Fridays, and then if I can fit anything else socially in that fits in with my 16 hours, that's fine. I've been very, as far as my family relationships concerned, my partner Carol, she lives in Auckland, and she's been fantastic. The support, the caring there is just, I couldn't ask for better, and that's been very important. Also, my two sisters, my sons, they're always there. If I need something, it's able to say, hey, can you help out? And that's been very important. And we all look after my parents. They're in care in a retirement village, but we take a team approach, and I think that's pretty much how we're seeing this. I've got a family team that's supporting me, and we all work really well together. And the fortunate thing is that there's no judgment. It's, say, what can we do? And being a bit of persistent bugger, sometimes I don't ask for help, or I'll say no. But other than that, it's just great to know that I've got people there to support me. There's, I don't know if it's concerning, but interesting social challenges to go with the people that I've known for a short time or a long time. As you say, if you're not seeing these people frequently, they seem to disappear from your life. And that's pretty much been my observation of this. So for the last 15 to 20 years, I've been active within the cricket community and the football community as my sports, and also other social events. And on a weekly basis, I'm out there working with these people, creating things for them to do as well as they can. And it's almost like, since I've disappeared physically from these environments, that I've disappeared physically. Facebook's a great thing, and it probably could be a reason for it. Like, I'm not one to put everything out there, but every so often I put an update on my condition, and I might get 120 people responding saying, "Oh, poor you, and hope you get better soon, and good luck." And I'll come and have a coffee sometime, but they've never turned up. It's almost like it's in the too hard basket, because I'm not going there. They don't come back and see me. The interesting thing is that some friends that I'd lost contact with, friends I've had for 40 years, are the ones that have been most supportive. I've got one friend that lives 100 kilometres away, and every time he comes anywhere near Hamilton, he gives me a ring, comes around for a coffee and has a chat. Had other friends came over from Australia, and they were going back to Australia. They called in, said, "Oh, we're only here for 10 minutes," and they were still there 3 hours later. And it's those things. Another friend, she's on Waiheke Island. Her partner's really sick, but she calls me up and we have a chat on WhatsApp. And yeah, these are people I've known for 40 odd years, which is really important. But yeah, if there's people out there, if you know of somebody that's got LC, just a phone call or a call in for a 10-minute coffee is going to make a hell of a lot of difference in their lives, because it is a very lonely experience. And when you're spending 3.5 or 4 days in bed living in your own brain, just sharing some of those thoughts with somebody else coming along makes a huge difference. The other interesting thing, and I suppose it's fairly typical of people in our society, is when I do go out socially and I go back to the places where I used to go to, "Oh, we haven't seen you for a while." And you say, "Oh, yeah, I've got long COVID." And I had one guy, he laughed at me, and then he came back 5 minutes later. He said, "You told me you had long COVID, didn't you?" I said, "Yes. Can you please tell me what that's about?" It was only because he saw me walking, because sometimes I walk normally, sometimes I walk like I've got a stick shoved up my jacksie. And then the other, so I explained to him, and then he came back. He keeps apologising now for laughing at me, but that's just the reaction. People say, "Oh yeah, you've got long COVID." It's like, people say I've got a cold, and they go, "Oh, that's fine, yeah." Oh, and they think about it and say, "Okay, what exactly is this long COVID thing, and how does it affect you?" and that's one part of it. The other part is like the places where I go socially, and the same people are there that say, "Oh, you're looking much better this week." "Yeah, oh, you're looking very well. You must be getting better." I say, "No, not really. I've just spent the last 3.5 days in bed so that I can be here now." And they go, "Really?" I said, "Yeah. This is my important social occasion of the week, so I can bring my father here and see you guys. And since Monday morning, I've been in bed. Essentially, all I've done since then is eat and go to the toilet. And then Thursday night, I can come down here." "Oh, really?" And then, yeah, I don't think they still fully understand that that's what my life is about, yeah. Yeah, I think because I've gone through these experiences with the FND previously, and I'm in a similar world there. So when I had FND, I spent 2 years going through this. So it's more of an acceptance now. Some days I still get pissed off, some days I still get sad, and some days I feel scared, just not knowing what the future is. For me, last time I had 2 young sons, and my focus for that 2 year period of time was pretty much on them. So the planning and everything is what could I do for them while looking after myself. This time they're grown, they're out of the way, they're leading great lives, and it's more looking after myself so that I can share the time with the people that I love. So that's become my priority. Not too much. I find from previous experience, stressing, worry, concern isn't going to change anything. So if I head down that path, it's a case of, right, let's calm things down, let's do something positive, and so that I've got positive energy rather than having the negative energy draw on what little I've got. When I had the FND, so a quick summary. So I first collapsed in July 2001. I just fell on the floor and lost complete muscle control. I couldn't speak, I couldn't move anything. My brain was still functioning. I thought I've had a stroke. So I got lifted up, thrown in the back of the car and taken up to the hospital and spent 10 days in hospital. All the tests were done. If you've had those neurological tests, I can do them all in my sleep now, touching your nose and being banged on the knees and all done. So I got several different diagnoses. But once again, I had the neurologist tell me that there was nothing wrong with me, so that was fine. After 6 months, that sort of came better. I got functional. Within 9 months, I was back working again. I collapsed again in 2004, and at that time it was pretty serious. And so I was out. I didn't work for 2 years, and I spent a lot of time lying in bed looking at the ceiling. And then I thought, well, I can only do this so much. I've been through the process of, there was nothing organically wrong in my body that they could pinpoint on what the problem was. So I was coming up with a plan and saying, right, I've got to look after myself first to look after my family. So that was pretty much my forethought, was, okay, what can I do so that I can function to look after my family and my children, were the most important thing. And it was having those positive thoughts saying, well, if I go into a negative spiral, and sometimes you start heading down there, you think, well, this isn't going to do me any good. It's not going to do them any good. So by focusing on them, I helped to focus on myself and focus on the positives. Quite fortunate I've had a large garden. I love growing fruit and veggies and things. So the time that I had would get out into the garden and smell the roses. When the mandarin's flowering, the smell of mandarin blossom and lemon blossom, it's fantastic. I'd take photos. We had a massive plum tree in the backyard, so I'd take a sequence of photos every day and put a time sequence together just to the tree going from bare branches to the pink blossom to the green leaves. Just focusing on the little things that were around, and the joy of nature and the joy of life, because there's a lot of it around us. And if we can focus on the good things, like I say, the bad things come along and say, well, you're not going to help me too much. So what are the beautiful, wonderful things? One thing that we've got now, last year I noticed in the garden I've got in Hamilton, there weren't any honeybees or any pollinators around. There was lots of flies. So I bought a box of bumblebees. And so that was a gift to myself, and it was observing and watching I could just sit there for hours and watch the bumblebees come out of their nest and fly off and see what flowers they were going to and where they're going to. And they die off at the end of the year, and the queens go and make new nests around the neighbourhood. And I think the greatest thrill I had this spring was having bumblebees come back and knowing that they were the next generation of the ones that I'd helped establish last year. And then Carol bought me a box of bumblebees for my birthday this year. And so when I've got time in the afternoon, I just sit out there and watch our bumbles go away and come home again and make sure they're happy. So it's finding, it doesn't have to be big things. It's just those little things to know what's important in this world and what's important in life. I think the key thing is to keep positive and not to stress. Right? While it's so very hard because there's such a big unknown there, and we're in a world where we can hook onto Google or we can do this or do that, and we can find out what's actually happening. If you're living this life, we just don't know. World experts don't know what's actually happening to us. I think, or something that it sort of brought me a wee bit into perspective is I've got a friend who's about 15 years older than me, and he's been having funny symptoms and falling over, and he's had a whole lot of tests. And so they tested him for Parkinson's, and it wasn't Parkinson's, but then they came back and I read his diagnosis. He didn't understand it, but he has brain atrophy. And his brain is slowly dying, and he will keep falling over and he won't get better. And I don't have that. As far as I know, I've been through this experience before. I'm going to have good days, I'm going to have bad days, and if I keep stretching myself, pushing my boundaries within my limitations, I'm confident that I'll be able to extend those boundaries. I'll be able to live a better and fuller life. I probably will never get back to 100%, but I'm getting old, so that ain't going to happen anyway. But I know that with the support and help I've got, that I will eventually be able to live a more fuller and better life. If not, make the most of what I've got. That's pretty much where I'm at.